It is day 145 of the second Trump administration. And tomorrow is going to be quite the split screen for the United States of America. In Washington, D.C., you will see an extravagant multi-million-dollar parade for the Army's 250th anniversary that just so happens to also be Donald Trump's birthday. At the same time, you will see so-called No Kings protests against the Trump administration in more than 2,000 cities in all 50 states. Meanwhile, Marines are on the ground in Los Angeles, California, joining the National Guard who were deployed by the president in response to immigration protests there. Trump still has control of the Guard for now, as California's lawsuit works its way through the appeals process. And we are learning more about the moment a sitting U.S. senator was forced to the ground and handcuffed at a Homeland Security news conference yesterday. A source telling NBC News that former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski was the person who asked the federal agents not to arrest Senator Alex Padilla and to remove his handcuffs. With that, let's bring in our nightcap. There's a lot to talk about. Retired Army Colonel Jack Jacobs is with us. He's a Medal of Honor recipient and an MSNBC military analyst. Anthony Fisher is here, MSNBC Daily senior editor. Steve Leisman, CNBC senior economics reporter, and Pablo Torre, ESPN analyst and host of Meadowlark Media's Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast. Pablo, you come from sports, so a split screen is your jam.
Yes.
Set this up for us. What is tomorrow going to look like for the United States of America?
It's not going to feel like America to any reasonable person who remembers whatever vision of America they were sold. All of this feels, and I think autocratic is maybe not even cutting through enough anymore. And I'll use a term that is sort of out of vogue, but I think maybe resonates. It feels third world. All of this, military parades, plus secret police disappearing people, all of this layered with what we'll get to, I'm sure, when it comes to, just the prospect of World War III. All of it feels like whatever version of America you wanted, this cannot possibly be it if you're being honest with what you signed up for when it came to patriotism. This is so deeply self-centric. The birthday salute. It's so deeply undemocratic what's happening in L.A. with all of the obvious motives involved. It's embarrassing stuff.
Well, let's talk about No Kings Day. What has to happen, Anthony, for these protests to make an impact? How do they carry the momentum past this weekend? And by impact, I mean a positive impact for the protesters to consider it a success, not an impact that is going to be a disastrous conflict between the administration and the protesters.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just got to keep their eye on the ball.
What is the ball?
Well, I think the ball is resistance to the, king-like behavior that the president is exhibiting right now, like secret police raiding, schools. And, we've even just saw today for the first time a U.S. Marine detaining a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil. Those kind of images are going to last. They're going to resonate. Resistance to those images, unified resistance, law-abiding unified resistance is something that I think can resonate past this weekend. But the ball is, the thing that they're specifically saying that they're in opposition to, don't try to make the tent any smaller. Don't try to have purity tests among the activists. Just, be unified.
Colonel Jack, New York Times Pentagon correspondent said retired military officials are worried that tomorrow we could have a Tiananmen Square moment. One single protester standing in front of a tank. What is your reaction to this?
Well, it's always possible. You've got a country of 347 million people. The law of large numbers says that there's always the possibility that one or more of them are going to do something exactly like that. The thing about you're talking about the parade. I mean, I spent a lot of time in the military. I spent a lot of time in parades myself. And full disclosure, I hate parades.
Why?
I hate parades. You're standing out there you got to practice forever, right? You're standing out there for a long period of time, either in the baking sun or what may be tomorrow, the pouring rain, to the aggrandizement of some high-ranking guy. And at the end of the day, you're taking time away from training to close with the enemy, to kill or capture him, which is what your job ought to be. And for an administration that prides itself on turning the military into a lean, mean fighting machine, spending any amount of time on a parade field is absolute nonsense.
The Guardian is reporting that some members of the military who are participating in the parade feel like pawns. They're not happy to be there. They're almost embarrassed, especially when you consider what's happening overseas. And we have men and women defending our country overseas.
Yeah, we have a lot of things to do. All of them are important, and the least important of all of them is being in a parade. And yes, I've spoken to a lot of people in the chain of command who are terribly concerned about the use of the military in this kind of environment for this kind of purpose. They think it's extremely dangerous, but more dangerous than just taking time away from doing important things like training. It's possible that it begins to instill in the rank and file the notion that this is the proper use of the military instrument of power for the aggrandizement of one person, no matter what it's purported to be. And the danger is that this will feed on itself and ultimately become the thing that we ought to do with our military establishment rather than training them to defeat our enemies. Very, very dangerous. And if you talk to people in the chain of command, they'll tell you exactly that.
A waste of time, but what about, Steve, a colossal waste of money? Over $100 million, right? This parade is costing taxpayers, right? How are we supposed to take DOGE seriously when this administration is about cutting government waste, and we're going to spend over $100 million, right? We're firing tens of thousands of government workers just doing their jobs, but we're going to spend money on this. What's the rationale there?
It depends on how you want to take DOGE seriously as a manifestation of the administration's policies to essentially
take it at its face value.
Reduce services for poor people and low-income people. Yes, it's very serious, and they're very good at that, apparently. But in terms of wasting money on all kinds of things like parades or sending the president to golf in Mar-a-Lago every other weekend or every weekend maybe, it's a very difficult contradiction to stomach. What worries me more, what the colonel was talking about, though, is this notion of further ingraining militarism into the psyche of Americans and what and who we are. I was in Russia for 6 years. And we all saw the parades that they had, and that was Russia. And I will never forget that when the Soviet Union fell, the first statue they put up was to General Zhukov. General Zhukov led the Soviet army in World War II. This was a country that had nothing to believe in. And so what happened when communism fell? They went back to trying to form a culture based on their military. And this is what really bothers me in terms of a parade like this, the National Guard in Los Angeles, the Marines in Los Angeles. That's who we are, is just a militarist society.
I want to go back to the Marines and what Anthony mentioned, because if our audience hasn't seen it, Reuters has this video of the Marines that were there in L.A. In front of a federal building that they were assigned to protect, and they're detaining someone. Now, the Marine spokesperson said that they did that very quickly, then moved them to local law enforcement. But that image on U.S. soil, our military detaining a person, do people realize what a big deal this is? Because the average person could be like, I don't know, military, law enforcement, isn't it all the same thing? No, it's not.
Yeah, the promise is always this is happening to them and not to you. You being, in this case, the base, right? Like, this is, no, this is them. Those 48% of Los Angeles, that's Hispanic or Latino, that's them. That's not you. You're one of the good ones. Those are the bad guys. And DOGE being this through line we can trace through all of this is kind of instructive, because what did DOGE promise? What is DOGE? It's just telling that this parade, these protests are coming after, about a week after, the architect of DOGE, Elon Musk, called for the impeachment of Donald Trump, claimed that he was in the Epstein files, then, of course, naturally had to backtrack some on that. But
said we've got a recession coming. The bill's an abomination.
He said everything
but
that he was waiting.
Said, yo, I'm sorry.
It's all good.
Yeah.
We're good. What do you mean? Meanwhile, by the way, those veterans, he was the guy, Elon, this administration was the administration that also cut the VA to a degree that is unconscionable when it comes to we are going to parade around the people whose services we are cutting. We're going to put them in a position to be the bad guys to everybody except for the, again, strongman who commands them to act in his image as he's selling everybody else that this is actually yours. It is not.